Welcome to Step Zero. I'm your host, Caitlin Henry. Today I'm sitting down with Gregg Champion, founder of Startup Recovery, who is redefining what recovery can look like in the modern world. Gregg is an entrepreneur, community builder, and person in long-term recovery who saw a gap between traditional recovery spaces and the next generation seeking connection. Through Startup Recovery, he has built a platform that brings innovation, technology, and human connection into the recovery conversation, creating events, digital spaces, and sober communities for people who want more than just abstinence. They want purpose. A huge part of my story. What makes Gregg's work so powerful is that he treats recovery not as an ending, but as a launch point. Gregg and I are going to talk about rebuilding after addiction, entrepreneurship as healing, modern recovery culture, and what it means to start over without shame. Gregg, welcome to the podcast today.
Good to be here, Caitlin. I love the name of your podcast. I love that you have shifted your addiction to passion and now are a beacon of hope for many people who are in early recovery or are wanting to relaunch their recovery, like you said in the opening. Good to
Yeah,
be here.
thank you so much. It really is. Step zero is the step before step one. It's all about how you don't have to hit rock bottom to get sober. You just have to have an ounce of willingness. And I can't wait to talk to you today because purpose was a huge part of my recovery. When I stopped drinking, I realized I had lack of purpose. What the hell do I want to do with all this time? So before we get there, I want to start with your story today. Take us back to wherever you want, but sometime when you're younger, when did you first start using alcohol as a coping tool?
Well, I definitely want to tell a nice fluid story. I don't want to go all the way back, but there are some touch points in terms of the ism, you
Yeah.
know, and, my friend Robert Landis talks about the ism stands for I, self, and me.
Mm, I
And
love that. I've never heard that.
boy, did I have a lot of I, self, and me, even as a precocious youngster. And really for me, Caitlin, my alcoholism started when I was 4 years old. My father was killed in a drunk-on-drunk car crash. And so there was this moment you hear in the rooms or you hear in therapy sessions or you see on TV shows where they say, "Oh my God, the next day I felt different." I immediately felt different. My coping skills for a 4-year-old was, you know what? I was very angry. So I lashed out with violence and rage and all that kind of stuff. I certainly medicated with fantasy. I was a kid who grew up in the 70s and 80s and certainly loved movies and TV shows and would go act out those TV shows and go act out those movies and disappear. And then last but not least, I loved attention. Uh, Caitlin, I was the prettiest girl on the block. And I say that because I had blonde curly hair, big blue eyes. I was very female looking.
Oh my God.
And so basically, I'm feeding off of anger, I'm feeding off attention, I'm feeding off fantasy. And as you know, all three of those still follow us into our adult years. And then I always share this. It took me a while to share this, but at 8 years old, there was a male neighbor who was inappropriate with me. And that shocked my system. There was a lot of
Mm.
confusion. I didn't understand a lot. I thought it was my fault. When I went to my friends and said, "Hey, is this going on?" They looked at me as if I had a third eye. So the shame set in. And that was my first secret to keep. And I kept that for a long, long time. And luckily, my mom remarried when I was 10. She married a World War II vet. He was there on D-Day during World War II. He was great stepdad. He taught me how to tie a tie, shave my face, open doors for ladies, all that old school stuff. But he also brought 17 years of AA sobriety into the house. My mom and him actually met at an Al-Anon AA New Year's Eve dance. So love can be found at a corny event like that.
I love that. And I love to hear that that was like an Eskimo. I can't believe what a gift that must have been to have 17 years just step inside your house after losing your dad
Yep, he
in
was
a
a
drunken
wonderful
car crash.
stepdad,
Yeah.
and then, he loved my mom, but around 13, puberty kicked in, and I started freshman year. I was the youngest in my class, um,
Did you still have the curly blonde hair?
still with the curly blonde hair, and I just remember that the peer pressure, the pretty girls, and the access to drugs and alcohol was a perfect trifecta for me. And I medicated my freshman, sophomore, junior year of high school in that way. Girls, drugs and alcohol, and wanting to fit in. And then, you know, I'll just cut to this. Went to college, did all that. I was definitely a frat boy, had that experience. No consequences until I graduated from college. And on my graduation night, I got my first DUI. And from there, I proceeded to get arrested 7 more times. And
Wow. And what time frame?
2 years
Just 2.
and 2-year
Yeah.
period. So from age
Wow.
22 to 25.
So you were a late bloomer if you didn't get caught until your senior year of college. We talk about all these rock bottom stories here on Step Zero. And what I'm hearing is, you kept getting away with it. You weren't having to acknowledge the consequences until 7 times in 2 years. So what
Yeah.
happened from there?
So 2 things happened for me. One, it was a formula, was Gregg plus drugs and alcohol equal jail, which I did not see the formula till later. And number 2 was that I was behaving in the real world like as if I was behaving in high school and college, and those rules don't apply. And so the consequences became more apparent to me. It really became a buy-in to step 1. You're powerless over alcohol and your life is unmanageable, right?
And I have a question there. Was
Sure.
your stepdad stepping in at any of these times saying you have a problem with alcohol? Was anyone on the outside telling you you have a problem, or were you feeling it internally at that point?
So I'm so glad you asked that because it will come back around in my story. So 2 things. My really despised Alcoholics Anonymous, and here's why. My stepfather would say, "Hey, I'm taking a cake. I'd like you to give me a cake." I'd go to his meetings, right? And I would see you freaks in a circle with your blue Bible and your plastic cakes and, holding hands. And I'm going, who are these freaks? And then I want to have to go through that pain for another 364 days, right? And I just kept going, what is this cult this guy belongs to, right?
And I want to stop you there because it's so funny. I always say to people, oh, we only knew the stigmas from movies or TV shows. And what you're saying is you actually stepped in the rooms and you
Oh,
just kept the stigmas. You were like, I
oh.
only see the differences.
1000%. Like, and the thing is, everybody looked and sounded different. And I'm like, how do these people have something in common? Because it's just such a rainbow effect in the rooms.
Mhm.
And so, every once in a while, he would write me a letter in college and say, "Hey, you got to stop asking for money. I know where it's going. It's going to drugs and alcohol. Hey, you got to get a summer job. You can't just be drinking your life away." Just kind of like that kind of stuff, but never pointed me to the rooms of AA, never. And then unfortunately, he passed away about 5 months after I graduated from college. He passed away of prostate cancer, and it went quickly.
Mm.
And so I kind of lost this beacon of kind of keeping me on the rails, right? Like I would listen to him. And then as soon as I knew he was off the planet, I was like, I'm going. Here I go. And that's when the other 7 arrests happen. And so, I got arrested for assault. I got arrested for driving drunk again, driving with a suspended license. I actually, Caitlin, very famously, I got arrested in Mardi Gras twice in 24 hours.
Oh my gosh. I'm
Yep.
sure you're not the first and not the last.
Nope. Nope. And what happened was that I went up to this big Irish cop on the corner of whatever that street is, Bourbon Street and something else. And I said, "Hey, what are the rules of this place?" And this big Irish cop looks down at me and he says, "Son, don't piss in the streets and don't fight in the streets." So, Caitlin, I ask you what 2 things I got arrested for. Oh yeah.
A
Oh
real
yeah.
alcoholic. Tell
Yep.
me what I can't do and I'll make sure it
Yep.
happens.
What 1,000 and go all in, all right? All the way,
Yeah.
yeah. So, that was a sort of wake-up call. Um, I did take up smoking that week, there's 4 days in Mardi Gras, and I was smoking Marlboro Reds, just old school Steve McQueen, John Wayne cigarettes, and then
What
when I got
year is this?
this is, early '90s, this is
Oh, yeah.
1990,
Oh, yeah. Nice
1990,
Marlboro Red in the 90s.
yeah, and, uh, and when I got back, and people were like, "How did you get arrested twice? What did you do different?" And I said, "You know what? I took up smoking. I should just quit smoking." And I did. Yeah.
It
Oh, yeah.
can't possibly be the alcohol.
Can't possibly be drugs and alcohol. It's gotta be smoking. And this is what we do. We sort of just put out fires until there's the fire is so big it burns us and that's when we hit our rock bottom. So fast forward. I love shortcuts, Caitlin. Do you like shortcuts?
Oh, absolutely. Who doesn't? The easy button, right?
Yeah. I love that. Easy button. Great. So do you remember like when I got detention, they would say, "Hey, Greg, I need you to write 200 times I will not talk in class, right? On the chalkboard or on paper, right? And this is how I wrote it. I, will, not, talk, right? Just this. And it's a great metaphor for what's life is about. I was doing the exercise, but I wasn't getting the message.
Mm,
And what I
yeah.
mean by that, how that plays into this was, hey, I was told post college that I would have a nice job, could afford a nice car, and have all that. I had a shitty car. I made $19,000 a year. I was eating top ramen and drinking Mountain Dew. And I was like, well, that didn't add up. Lo and behold, I was working at a TV station. My hours at the TV station were 6 p.m. to 3 a.m. Okay. So when I'm speaking from the podium, I say this, I say, I want to welcome the newcomers. I just need you to do two things. I need you to get in the boat and row with me and let God be the rudder. But before you get in the boat, you got to leave the anchors on the shore. And those anchors are
Ah.
lower companions, drug dealers, and girls and boys you can't bring home to mom. Okay.
It's like drop the rock, but I
Yeah.
love the anchor analogy. It's so
Yes.
true. And you gotta start with stuff like that, which the steps don't always talk about, what you're
Yeah.
letting go of, what you're surrendering. I love that you specifically call it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this is why I say this, because when you're getting out of a job at 3 a.m, all your normal friends are in bed. They got 9 to 5 jobs. But Caitlin, you know who we find at 3 a.m. We find lower companions, drug dealers, and girls you can't bring home to mom, in my case.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I started hanging out with this bunch of people, and eventually, they gave me a proposition. They're like, hey, you must know a lot of people all over the United States. I said, yeah, I went to a big college and certainly do. Well, why don't we start shipping some marijuana to them? And so slowly but surely, we started FedExing 2 pounds, 4 pounds, 8 pounds, and eventually went to 50 pounds in suitcases.
Because it always has to be more, more, more. This is
More, more,
such an
more, more,
alcoholic
and
mentality.
shortcut,
We're not
shortcut,
just
shortcut.
gonna keep it small. Yeah, shortcut, shortcut. We're not just gonna keep it small and hidden. Let's just see how far we can push
Oh,
it.
and by the way, I won't get caught because I'm special.
Oh, of course. Did you see that movie with Tom Cruise? I can't remember the name right now. He's got a little airplane
Yep.
and he starts shipping the drugs back and forth, and that's exactly what happens. It just gets heavier and heavier. How much can we do? How far can we
Yep.
go taking off and landing? And
So needless to say, to use your airplane analogy here, I'm going to say that I crashed and burned. And so basically, I eventually got caught with 50 pounds of pot.
and how old were you at this time?
I was 25.
Okay.
And in front of the judge, and the judge says to me, I'm looking at your record here. You went to private school. You have a college degree. You come from a good family,
And
right?
still the blonde curly locks,
Oh
I'm
yeah, oh
sure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I just think about that guy. He on the outside looked so proper, but on the inside, so much pain.
Uh,
Because here's why: I had so much shame doing that. I didn't want to be a drug dealer, and I had so
yeah.
much shame, and so my drinking and using went exponentially up. Lots of drinking, lots of marijuana, lots of cocaine, and it just went up. And before you know it, I'm the hamster on the wheel. And so the judge finally says, listen, what I do know, young man, is if I see you in my courtroom in the next 6 months, I'm going to give you the 5 years hanging on your head for prison. And Caitlin, I went home and licked my wounds. I went and got some Chinese food, a big gulp from 7-Eleven. I stayed inside for a few days, but then eventually, and this is dating me, my beeper went off. And I called whoever's calling me, hey, you're going to miss the party of the year. And so 18 days later from that court date, I go drink a 6-pack of Moosehead. I smoke a couple joints and I have a couple bindles of Coke on me and I go to the party of the year. And by this time, Caitlin, none of my high school friends want to be near me. None of my college friends want to be near me because they know I'm on the dark side.
And I have a question. Did the judge tell you you had to go to AA or do some sort of recovery or giving back?
No,
Nothing.
not,
Slap
not,
on the
not that,
wrist.
not that, not at that point.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Not really a slap risk. I'm going to give you bail. You're going to go out in the world and you and your lawyer are going to work something out. Because
Wow.
remember, I only had
Okay.
18 days, like 18 days. So all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I'm 10 minutes into this party, and this guy comes up to me who I don't know. And part of my ism is I'm also a people pleaser. And when someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Oh, no, hey, you got any blow on you? Let's go." And so famously, I go down to my little sports car. I pull out my Duran Duran CD case, and I put out a couple lines. By the way, I've told this story once in a room of AA, and one of the band members from Duran Duran was in that room. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
epic. That's so LA
Yeah.
recovery.
So we had a nice little chat after. I said, "Hey, you're a part of my story." And so, I pull out the lines, I put them in front of him, and guess what he does? He goes, "Hey, San Diego Police Department." I
Bummer.
don't know I don't know if you've had that big of a bummer, but that's a big bummer.
I mean, and here's the thing, was that your final rock bottom? Was that the last time you had a drink? Because so many people go to that space and they get in the depths of trouble or they finally get that sentence.
Yeah.
And tell us what happened from there.
Yeah, so I went to jail. I woke up the next morning about 5 AM. I'm in the fetal position. Luckily, I got arrested in Del Mar, California, which means it's a very clean jail cell. But then I hear this voice, "Greg, there's a better way.
Hmm.
Greg, there's a better way." And I pop up, I look around, and there's no one there. There's no cellmate, there's no officer. And I look up and the voice says, "Call your mother. Call your mother." And I'm like, "Call my mother? She's 60 something years old. She's going to have a conniption. That her little blonde hair, blue eyed boy is going to be not the prettiest girl on the block, but the prettiest girl on the cell block, you
Mm.
know?" And I do call my mother. And of course, Caitlin, and I don't know what your mother does when she's mad at you, but she goes, "Gregory?" She gives me the "Gregory, I want you to go to church." "You want me to go to church?" "I want you to go to church." And so luckily, I had the resources to get myself bailed out. And that afternoon, I went back and got some Chinese food, a big gulp. And by 6 o'clock, I was at St. Brigidine's Church for a 6 o'clock PM Sunday Mass. And I will say I was very dazed and confused why I was there. But then after the priest had ended the Mass, he goes, "Hey, tonight we have confession. And I have 3 doors over here and I have 3 doors over here. And if you need to confess, go." And this is the sickness of the disease, Caitlin. My first thought, if I go to confession, I can go out tonight.
Mm.
That's my first thought. And what I've learned along the way, and I hope your listeners, first thought is the wrong thought. First thought is the wrong thought.
I actually teach teens and tweens that you can have an awareness of your thoughts, but you are not your thoughts, and how important that is, that you can shift and reframe your thoughts at any time. And so I love that you're saying your first thought is not always the right thought.
Yeah,
Have you
and there's
paused?
so many mechanisms I'm sure you use with your clients, in terms of, either pausing, taking a walk, I call it for me, what I do is I leverage my board of directors. And what I've assembled, Caitlin, over 30 something years of sobriety is I have 3 women and 3 men who sit on my board of directors. And they have these 3 characteristics: long-term sobriety, long-term success, and long-term marriages.
Mm.
Because those are the things that are important to me. And so what I do when I get squirrely and I start choosing the first thought, I call them and I run that idea by them,
Uh-huh.
you know, and they're able to give me some sage advice. So needless to say, I do stay and I go do the confession and I choose door number 2. And when I walk in, there is a beautiful older man with gray hair, lightning blue eyes, and he has an Irish accent. And in 30 something years of telling this story, I still can't do the Irish accent. But he says, "Son, tell me your sins." So I sit down and I go, "Father, when I smoke a lot of pot, I show up on Christmas on December 27th. When I drink a lot, I go to bars and I hurt people. When I do cocaine, I date 3 women at the same time and they have no idea. And when I do all 3 of those, I fly large amounts of marijuana to the East Coast." This poor priest must have thought, "Wow, where's the granny who didn't balance her checkbook properly, right? Where's the soccer mom who didn't pay the parking ticket, right?" But instead he goes, "Son, stop." He goes, "I have a question for you. You think you have a problem with drugs and alcohol?" "No." And then Caitlin, he looks at me like all of our good mentors, coaches, and sponsors do. "Please tell me the truth." And I said, "Father, you're the second man in my life ever to ask me that question." And I say, "Okay." And he says, "Well, who was the first?" I said, "My stepfather." He goes, "What was your stepfather's name?" I said, "Walt Janicki." He reaches across, grabs my hand, and goes, "I was Walt Janicki's first sponsor."
No. Oh my gosh.
Yep. Yes.
Wow.
And so he continues to hold my hand. And he goes, "Your sins don't belong here." They belong 4 blocks up at the Alano Club, and there's an AA meeting starting at 7:30.
Oh my gosh, where's your book? How do I buy it?
And
I'm ready. I'm
and
ready for
so
the movie.
Caitlin, here's the coolest thing is I go, and that was 11/7/1994. That's my sobriety
Wow.
date,
Wow.
okay?
Because what
That
a God shot. And you had a choice, that fork in the road to say, oh, this was nothing, just brush it off.
right,
Or, oh my God,
yeah,
this is a higher power working in
one
my life.
1000%.
If I don't take this, then I don't know where my life will go.
That is exactly how I was feeling. It came
Mm.
over me, and it was like, "Vroom," like this, and I'm like, "Okay, whatever this guy tells me to do, I need to do." And here's the craziest thing. His name is Father Bill Wilson.
Oh, that's so cool. For those listeners who aren't AA based, Bill Wilson is who founded AA with the help
Yeah,
of
and so he
many
had the
others.
same name as our founder. I
Hmm.
went saw Father Bill the day after in his office, and he goes, "Hey, I need you to do 3 things." Oh, first of all, he goes, I'm your sponsor. We're gonna meet
Mm,
here every week, and we're gonna do work the steps, but I need you to do 3 things. You're not drinking or using no matter what. No matter what. You're gonna go to 90 meetings in 90 days, and you're gonna take boxing lessons. Boxing
interesting.
lessons?
Yeah.
He goes, "Yeah, because when you do the first 2, you're gonna have so much anger and resentment, and you gotta get rid of it."
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And I feel like for men, especially, it's really hard for men to open up about their feelings and emotions. I think it's hard for women too. I definitely stuff them down, but especially so for men. So I kind of love the boxing factor. Like, get it out physically
Yeah. Oh,
first.
yeah.
So you tire yourself out so much, maybe it'll open up emotionally.
Yep, yep. And so
Yeah.
so so that's why I truly believe that if I ever went out to drink or use, that I would be disrespecting that God shot.
Yeah.
That whatever that higher power moment, that moment of providence happened, that I have to that's my root, and I've just built a lifetime of recovery off of that.
Well, and you had multiple higher power moments where you're in the jail cell and you hear the voice, which personally sounds like your stepdad to me, right? Like nudging you. And oh man, yeah, it's such a woven story that you can't
And you
deny.
brought up the
There's
movie
something.
version, Caitlin, as we write this screenplay together, it will
Yeah.
be Morgan Freeman who will be the voice, right?
Yes, for sure. For sure. I love that. Okay, so tell me, how long did you do AA? Do you still today? And then when did you shift into startup recovery and where did you get that idea?
Okay, cool. So for me, the first 3 years of A was very challenging for me. I certainly bought into step 1, certainly bought into step 2 and 3. Step 4 was something I just didn't wanna look at.
Yeah.
I just didn't wanna go there. And so I began creating a pattern that's not a healthy pattern. I would find a sponsor, we do step 1, 2, and 3, and then we get to step 4, and I'm like, "I can't do that." Because for me, what step 4 was a lot of shame, a lot of shame, and secrets.
You know, I
And
read something the other day that said shame is the lowest vibrational frequency there is. It's below anger, it's below sadness. Like shame is really the lowest vibration and it's why so many people are so scared to get sober because then they have to feel that shame and they have no tools to feel it and move on. So again, I'm excited to dive into what you do today because it's such a good
sure.
supplement for the 12 steps, but keep going.
And so eventually, I heard a guy from the podium tell the exact story for me. He lost his father early on. He had a coach that was inappropriate with him. He went to a big college and got arrested. Like was a creative person. And I finally went up to him and I said, "Hey, would you be my sponsor?" And he goes, "Well, tell me about what's going on with you." I go, "I'm stuck on step 4." And what he did was he goes, "Hey, we're going to do step 4, but then we're going to have the fifth column." I go, "What's the fifth column?" And you may want to explain to your viewers what the columns are in terms of step 4. There's 4 columns, right? And you're working your way through it. But the fifth column, and this is very important, this is how we kind of built up some parts of the recovery playbook and startup recovery. He called it the shame column. He goes, "I want you to write down all the things that are still inside you that you have shame around." So it could be stuff from your childhood. It could be stuff around money. It could be stuff around loss of life, grief, things to which you harm people, and you just go, you know. And so I wrote down 17 things. And what happened was, Caitlin, he had me uncover, discover, and discard those 17 things. And that set me free.
Uh,
And what I did is
Similar. Similar experience. Yeah, but I love the 5th column, literally writing that
and so what I
down.
what I
So
what I've
beautiful.
simplified it, I call it the backpack of shame. Because if you think
Mm,
about it, I'm carrying around those 17 things, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier. And once I set myself free by getting rid of that stuff, uncovering, discovering, and discarding, then I finally can set myself free. And so, I just say that my secret sauce of being sober for this long um, is I've remained willing to be willing.
yes.
And so the middle part of my recovery has been, hey, when I had an anger issue and someone turned me on to breath work, a former guest of yours, John Paul Crimmy,
He's the
okay,
best. I love
right?
him.
The best. And that guy, I went to his breathwork class for 2 years straight, and boy,
Yeah.
my level
He's
of rage and anger went down.
totally. He's coming again at the end of March, so
Good,
I'm already signed up. He is
good.
phenomenal. He does it in a way no one else does, and I love to hear that how many years sober were you when you discovered him? Do you remember?
I was, 15 years sober.
Okay, so what I wanna say to my listener is, it doesn't matter how much time you have. You can find new tools at any point in your sobriety, and I still do that at 7 years sober today. I'm finding new things all the time that help keep me sober.
Caitlin, that is the playbook for recovery. You have to continue to challenge yourself. Go on a silent retreat. Do outside therapy, right? Go to a meeting that's completely out of your neighborhood, right? Run a marathon. You have to be constantly changing your tool belt, adding new tools. That's the secret to success. Really is. AA is a great foundation, the essential foundation. But in order to have long-term sobriety, which ultimately is this emotional sobriety that leads into recovery.
Could
So,
not agree more, and that's why I, love your startup recovery and what you offer your clients. So, we're right at the part where years 1 through 3 are hard, you're doing this thing with your sponsor, you finally relieve yourself with this 5th step, or
yep.
5th column, I should say. Were you eventually able to finish the step work? And
Oh,
now
yeah.
I assume
I've
sponsor
done the steps
others?
four different times in my 30-something years, but that was the first time I completed it, and I certainly, have learned more each time I've done it. One of my things I'll just give you 2 examples of how I changed things up. For step 6, what I did is I took my character defects, and I got those from page 48 in the 12 and 12. It lists out the 7 sins, gluttony, greed, envy, pride, anger, lust, and something else. And so what I did is I ended up picking the 3 that were basically me. And the 3 that are my character defects are lust, pride, and anger. Those are the 3 things that have shown up for me since I was 8 years old, 18, 28, and so on. And what I do when I have these character defects is I go throw them in step 1. This is step 6, but step 1. I'm powerless over anger and my life's unmanageable. I'm powerless over lust and my life is unmanageable. I'm powerless over pride and my life is unmanageable. And bam, guess what? That's the emotional sobriety toolkit that takes you to the next level. So the other thing as I always struggled with prayer and meditation. I thought it was prayer or meditation.
Totally.
Okay. Until I heard a speaker in San Francisco talk about it from the podium. He goes, hey, I meditate and then I pray. And I said,
Mm.
okay, I'll go back to my hotel room and I'll try that. And guess what? It worked. And so now I meditate first and then I pray. And so if your listeners are at a sticky point in terms of prayer, mix it up, try it up. It might work. And so basically, how do we get to startup recovery, Caitlin? Was, one of the things that served me well was that I became addicted to work post sobriety. And that served me well. I came to LA in 97. I started working at NBC and Fox and DreamWorks and other places and had a nice little rise. And it was because I was sober. I wasn't hungover. I was using my addiction to take me off on a career. And that career served me for a while. And then eventually in 2015, 2016, um, uh, the budgets got smaller and the headaches got bigger in my line of work. And I worked in media and television and commercials. And I came home to my wife one day and I said, I gotta leave my industry. And I love my wife. She's a beautiful, smart woman. We've been together 18 years, married 15 years, 3 beautiful girls. and she's very, very wise, and I sit down with her and I say, and she says to me, "Well, that sounds good, but we live in Pacific Palisades. Our kids are in private school, and I like nice things."
Yeah.
Which was like, "Okay, you can change careers, but what are you gonna do?" Right?
Yeah, very
And,
practical. I like her.
so this is one of my mantras. I said, "I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I wanna get paid for being me."
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's funny. The person that, connected us, Lauren, that was the first thing she said. "I wanna get paid for being me." Greg
Well, guess where she
Champion
got it
says
from?
it all the time. Yeah.
She got it from me. Um, and 4 days later, I'm speaking at an AA meeting, and I get done giving my story about getting sober in my he's being an entrepreneur, mentoring a bunch of people, teaching at USC, and being a good dad, a good girl dad, no less. Finer points of husbandry, and then I stop. I get done, and this little old lady comes up to me, and she's like a female Yoda, Caitlin. She points her finger at me, and she goes, "You would make a great group facilitator, ma'am. No disrespect, but what's a group facilitator?" And she goes, "Someone who takes their version of recovery and takes it into treatment centers, sober livings, and IOPs." And I go, "What's my version of recovery?" She goes, "What I just heard in 20 minutes."
Mhm.
And that launched me into this industry that I'm in now, where I work in behavioral health. I work with people with substance issues, family issues. And, uh, and lo and behold, what I did is I started a little brand called Startup Recovery as a coaching platform. I took my mantra from 1997, shifting addiction to passion, which was my mantra that got me the career in Hollywood and so on. And I began coaching in facilities. I began group facilitating. And over a 2-year period, I built this brand of coaching that was very different. It was entrepreneurship meets recovery. And along the way, I met this beautiful man, Jeffrey Van, who was in his own early recovery and was looking to do something new. And he goes, "Hey, one thing that's missing is sober living or a high end program for guys like me, 45, 50-year-old guys who are executives. What if we took your coaching curriculum and went and put it inside a house and started our own sober living?" And so the two of us put together this platform of entrepreneurship meets recovery about sober mentors. Hey, these people have long term sobriety and long term success, and now we're going to have you attached to them. We certainly had all the foundation of the AA stuff we talked about earlier on your show. Um, and really, we answered this question: I'm sober, now what? And
Yeah.
so the recovery playbook came out of that, hey, AA, your therapist, all that good stuff is going to get you sober. What are you going to do with this new life? And so that's where we're at. That's how we got started in late 2017. And we've been around 8+ years. And we had the blessing of bringing on Patricia Myers as our third partner about 5 years ago. And she brought that female sensibility, that female voice. And she also brought 20 years of being in the industry to help out in terms of guiding us even further to grow. So we went from one house to 3 houses to apartments to a wellness center, and here we are, and we really what we're trying to do, we want people to find their purpose.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what it's all about. There's two things coming up. It's like when people first get sober, we talked about its lack of purpose. And then the other thing is the willingness that it takes. So today with this generation of kids coming out, what are the differences in like their recovery needs that you're seeing versus back then? We've got the Marlboros, we've got the
Yeah, I
judge
mean,
slapping you on the wrist. Like, do you see any difference with clients coming to you today about what do they need versus what you needed when you got sober? Or do you find it's still the same thing? Again, what's coming up for me is like that need for connection and community,
yeah.
which you offer. But I'd love to hear what you have
I
to
would say
say.
startup recovery, one of our superpowers is community. We definitely
Hmm.
we thrive on it. We
Yeah.
wanna keep the group together at dinner, we wanna go out to meetings together, we wanna definitely have a lot of events together. We want them to find their tribe.
Yes.
And Caitlin, I know you found your tribe down there in the South Bay, and those women are essential to your existence.
Very much.
What I can say about this generation is really 3 things. One is there's way more drugs and craziness going on than what I was dealing with.
And so much more accessible because of the internet and social media. I heard they're selling them on TikTok. People will just post and you can go pick them up. It's,
Yep. Yeah,
yeah.
and what I'm finding is that the young addict is like, "Okay, I can be tested for this, I'll stop doing this, and I'm gonna do something that I can't be tested for," you know? So, like, kratom doesn't come up in urine test. Nitrous
Mm.
doesn't come up in urine test, and so you'll see a lot of kids going over that way. By the way, when
Yeah.
I was smoking pot, the THC levels were at 6%. Now they're at 30%.
Wow.
You can end up in a psych ward by smoking pot, you know?
That's what people don't realize. I just interviewed Michael Burba, and he was saying the same thing. Like it can cause psychosis, and people don't realize it. So for these people saying, "Oh, I'm just California sober,"
Yep.
it's not. It's not the same as it was back then, and it's not sobriety.
So and so that's the first thing, that the whole drug system is much more elevated, much more dangerous than ever before. Number 2, and I'm a parent, I'm blaming parents. You have failed your kids, and you have failed your kids by doing this. I'll give you an example. "Hey, listen, I know you're at this private high school. Just get good grades so you can get into high school. Don't worry about working. We got everything covered, okay? And so don't worry about working. Oh, you got into that nice college, right? Don't worry about working, okay? We're gonna make sure all your bills are paid, right? Okay. Oh, you're gonna graduate, and what are we gonna ask you to do? Work." And so guess what? We have a whole slew of kids who are asked to work at 22, 23 years old who don't know how to work. And they sit there and they sit in their basements or their apartments and they see their friends who do know how to work blowing up and all of a sudden compare and despair. And so
Mhm.
if I can't be like them, then I'm going to recoil and I'm going to go use drugs and alcohol or other behaviors that then take me out and I can medicate. Complete failure on parents. Make
Yeah.
your kids work. You got to, whatever that is, they got to know the value of working.
Oh my gosh. And this is why I teach the tools I teach to teens and tweens today. Literally, because the guy that came up with the fundamental life tools is long term AA, and he took out the word alcohol. He created these 7 tools. It's things like awareness, acceptance, intention, compassion, all these things you're talking about, because we didn't grow up with them. And I feel like if I had been given these tools as a teen or even tween, I love the 10 to 12 space, it is so beautiful to watch their little light bulb turn on, that it's like this little seed being planted. And so I love to hear that you're saying, parents, take accountability for what you're teaching your teens. We so often, get on our devices and just sit there on our stuff, and we're not teaching our children these simple tools that can steer them in the right direction.
I'm so glad you're doing this work. And what I will say to you, and maybe you can help me do this, I want to write a New York Times article that simply says this: the 12 steps should be in every fourth grade class in the country.
110%. It's
And when I say that to
absolutely
you,
true.
tell me why. Tell me why I'm right, and I'll come back. You tell me why I'm right when I say that.
I think that every person on this planet needs 12-step work, because when you take out the word alcohol, you can replace it with anything that any person is using in place of dealing with their emotions, their feelings, and like you said, the shame.
Yeah. So, specifically, this is why I say the fourth grade. You're 10 years old, okay?
Yes.
And guess what? You have a helicopter parent. You have a coach who is not appropriate with you. You are being bullied, right? So, I'm powerless over the bully and my life is unmanageable. I'm powerless over a narcissistic mother and my life is unmanageable. Imagine if a 10-year-old kid had that power to go through that, then get in a group to go, I'm not, you have the same thing going on with me? Like this? Here's what would happen. No one would use drugs and alcohol. You'd be stopping the cycle because most people, Caitlin, I don't know. I mean, you and I just met today, start drinking alcohol around puberty, around 13. But the damage has been done when they were 7, 8, 9, 10. What if we were to fix the damage before they have to go reach for drugs and alcohol?
110%.
That's it. That's the magic.
And knowing that others are going through it too. That was
Yeah,
huge for me. Oh my God, I'm not the only
yeah,
one. I've been keeping this secret for so long. And you too.
yeah. I mean, I will say a 10-year-old today is way smarter than we were then, simply because the access to knowledge, they just are. And so I feel like their little minds would be open to this. Like, you know, therapy is no more a shameful word. When I was 10, there was no therapy.
That's so funny. My
Oh,
son just started a month ago. He came to me because he knew I went to school to be a therapist. Now I'm a life coach. And because of that, he was comfortable to come to me and say, Mom, my friend's going to a therapist. Would it be okay if I went? And there was zero shame. And I was like, this is so
oh
beautiful.
my God.
Like, oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And that's gonna save him and you so much grief down the road. I mean, what a blessing.
One day he was having, like, a terrible time, and I thought, "Oh, good, he has therapy later." We've never had this experience where he's been so down for a whole day. He went into therapy for not even an hour. He left with a massive smile on his face. It was like that offloading of whatever problem he was having with his friend,
Yeah.
just saying it out loud, and then, like you said, getting advice or hearing someone else say, "You're not alone," was all he needed to hear to completely shift it, whereas it might have taken him into a spiral, and then if he's not in good groups and not with good friends and they start using drugs and they start using alcohol, you're absolutely right about if you gave these kids at age 9 these tools, it would be a game changer for society as a whole. I bet jails and institutions would be
Oh,
I don't wanna say empty,
yeah.
but, you know, the percent
Well,
would
and I
drop.
think you and I have been in enough rooms when people tell their stories that
Mhm.
I would say 98% of people that are in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs has some sort of childhood trauma.
Yes.
98%.
Yes.
Those traumas are still gonna happen, but what can we do to go help support those early on versus them finding the solution to drugs and alcohol and going, "Okay, I'm gonna park myself here for a decade."
Yes. 110%.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're writing this New York Times article. I'll get a hold of you later.
There you go.
Um, what I really wanna know today too is, do you find that this entrepreneurial spirit that you have is a form of healing for you, that it helps keep you sober?
So, 3 things in terms of this entrepreneurial spirit. One is, I think I was born an entrepreneur. I had a
Mm,
paper route at 9. I was the guy in college that would, book Disneyland trips for our high school class, make a little profit on top. In college, I was the T-shirt guy, Arizona State's playing Washington, I come up with some sort of T-shirt, and everybody come by my dorm room, and I'd be like, "Okay, here we go."
I have to say, do you wanna know what I sold in college? Per my alcoholic father's push, condoms. I bought condoms in bulk. People knew I had them in the corner of my room, and I sold them for $1 a piece.
You probably got a
Very
lot of late night knocks at your door.
Oh, I did. And we had flavors and everything.
Oh, boy. Oh, the
Real
flavor should have been
entrepreneur.
$2. You gotta up your grade, and, yeah, yeah. A
Yeah,
premium. So good,
100%.
because so Caitlin, you and I are matched in entrepreneurship. Number 2, in terms of this entrepreneurship thing is that, for me, in order to create, sort of this brand, I had to figure out what my it factor was. And, so I did some work on myself. I realized that there was some power in my last name, Champion. But I also realized that trying to be a champion every day took a lot out of me. You're having to really perform, whether it's in the classroom, the public arena, sports field, people were expecting things from you. And then lo and behold, one day I went to the Webster's dictionary and I looked up champion. And the first definition of champion is definitely what it is. It's the winner, the victor, the king of the hill. But if you look at the verb of champion, okay, it's someone who supports and mentors other people's dreams.
How perfect.
And that's what I do. That's what I do. And so for me, it's that little boy who was an entrepreneur, who found promise in his last name, and also has been successful as an entrepreneur to be able to guide people with a 10-page pitch deck, how to make a logo, how to do a tagline. Because what I feel is being a mentor, the greatest gift I can give you as being a mentor is I give you my mistakes.
So true.
I give you my mistakes.
You learn the most from mistakes.
Yep.
That's so true. I love that. Okay. I feel like we could go on forever, but how do you uphold your own sobriety and take care of your family and take care of your business, what are the main things that a guy like you who is so driven and so successful, what do you find really keep you in that flow?
So glad you asked that because, and not till you listed that off, like, you're like, "Hey, your life, your business, your family." Um, I think I have this thing called, and it's not a medical term, but I term it functional ADD.
Yeah.
I can spin a lot of plates. If I was a animal, I think I'd be an octopus. And I do. I have diagnosed ADHD, but I don't take any medicine for it because I have found that it works for me. It really does work for me. So I have that. I have this functional ADD thing. Number 2 is I get paid for being me. What better way to plug in, you know? And what I mean by plug in, I'm a big believer in the St. Francis prayer. God make me
Yeah.
a channel. God, right? And so each day I wake up, God make me a channel, right? And I just plug in and I really try to be respectful to my wife, be of service to them, be of service to my 3 daughters. They all have different things going on. But I learned at an old age, so we suit up and we show up. That's all we do. We suit up and we show up. And when it comes to our business, I'm so proud of our business. You know, Startup Recovery is a national, if not a global brand. We do a certain type of recovery. It works. Most programs are only 30 to 45 days. We're 90 days because we know that the longer stay has more meaningful outcomes.
Yes.
We're certainly around, uh, we're certainly around in terms of launching people, pushing the reset button. Uh, we and when I say we, Jeffrey Van and Patricia Myers are guideposts along with me in terms of this, but we give people another way of looking at recovery. It's a graceful way of recovery. It's respect. And when you said, "Hey, how does this younger," earlier in our talk, how does this younger generation buy into the recovery? Guess what? They have to do the work. I can't work harder than you are in your recovery. That's my golden rule. Okay? If you keep showing up to my coaching sessions, to our meetings, and you're just half-assing it, I'm gonna half-ass it, you know? And, I really want people to realize that if you do what we ask you to do, right? 100%, it says in the big book, you do everything thoroughly, you're gonna have the outcome you want, right? Half measures did not avail us. And so it's all there. And I'm just very proud of Startup Recovery. I'm very proud of Startup Wellness, which is a very unique proposition. And I'd love to invite you up, Caitlin. We do clinical therapy, Eastern medicine, and biohacking all under the same roof,
So cool.
right?
So
So you got a
necessary.
lot of
Mhm.
different touch points to heal yourself, heal your mind, heal your spirit, and heal your body. And then also, I'm very proud of the recovery playbook. It's something that came out of my own recovery. It is a playbook for recovery. And I think that the trifecta of startup wellness, startup recovery, and the recovery playbook are just a magnificent program for those who want to go do the work. And I take great pride in our alumni stories.
I was just going to ask, can you tell us a success story that's one of your favorites?
I will tell you two. I will tell you two. So we had a young man come to startup recovery. He was in his late 20s, early 30s. He was a tagger in New York City, a 9-year heroin addict who happened to go to Juilliard as an artist. Yeah. Okay. And so talented, but he could not stop using heroin. And what happened was he came to startup recovery. We took a liking to him. He's naturally gifted. He's charismatic. He has all the looks, reminding me of me, where you're this false thing, and but down here you're dying because there's so much pain, shame, drama, and trauma that happened to you. And lo and behold, I said, "Hey, what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the garages at the houses. We're going to put up a big thing like this, and you can start doing your art in our garage."
So cool. And I
He started.
love that you're molding it per your clients, right?
Yes.
This is not a cookie cutter thing for you.
Oh no. Every client I come in, here's what I say. Here's the first question I ask them, Caitlin, and this probably resonates with the work you do. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Ugh,
The
totally.
guy's like, "I'm 50
Absolutely.
years old." I'm already grown up. I go, yeah, but you're a shitty husband and a shitty dad. What are you going to, no. So back to this guy. We walk him out there and I say, hey, take the needle out of your arm and put the paintbrush in your hand. And what I can tell you is,
See, these are lines for the movie. I'm just gonna take this whole episode, put it into ChatGPT, and say,
okay,
"Write me a script."
okay. So Caitlin,
Okay.
who's going to play me? Who's going to play me? You could be a casting director.
Yeah.
So, so Caitlin, here's the cool thing. This guy
Mm.
he is 5 years sober. He's been married 3 years. He has a baby girl. He has sold his paintings at Art Basel in Miami.
Oh, so cool.
Okay. The other story is we have 2 alumni who last August got married.
I love that. It's like
They
that
got
when
married.
boy meets girl on
Boy
AA
meets girl.
campus, boy
And
meets
what happens,
girl at
they didn't
startup
they met at
recovery.
like, so they met at different parts. One was on this tier and one's but eventually in our alumni, they started hanging out. Before you know it, they're dating. And also we had our first, I call it startup wedding. We've also had
Oh,
4 startup babies.
no, that's so cute.
And why I say that to you is what happens is that the wife shows up and she says, if my husband comes drunk one more time, I'm gonna throw him down the stairs, right? That's the starting point of day one at startup recovery. So also this marriage is done. We then that guy buys into our system. He does the work. He starts going to AA back in his own hometown. And before you know it, she's going to Al-Anon. They're going to church together. And all of a sudden, 12 months later, I'm getting a phone call. Hey, we're pregnant. And that's how we define startup babies.
So cute.
Yeah.
So cute. You guys need to make little onesies to send as gifts or like
Well,
little baby
sure. That's a great,
robes.
yes.
Startup recovery. Yeah. That's so cute. I love success stories like that. And
Yeah.
what a gift that you're giving your clients. Also, your staff sounds amazing. So I am so sad that this episode has to start to close today. There's so many things that I want to pick your brain about. And I know one day we'll have the opportunity to connect in person. But for this person struggling, my step zero listener that isn't even willing to take step one, they're really in this struggle of step zero to step one, where I know I want to get sober, but I don't know how. I don't know what to do next. What would you tell them? What is one thing where they can start, where they can take their first step?
Well, this is not the first time I've been asked this question, and there's really no real right answer because everybody's different. But if you're sitting in a place where you want to give up, you want to give up. You want to move away. You want to detach from your family, or you may want to jump off a bridge. Like if you're in that dark spot, that's your opening, that's your crease to raise your hand and ask for help, you know?
Mm.
And I guarantee you that that's the single piece of courage you have to take is just ask for help. And so that could be a Facebook friend. Hey, listen, I understand that you work in recovery, or hey, I saw that your daughter got sober, whatever it is. Nothing has to be on the front page of the LA Times. It can always be behind the scenes, and you're navigating those waters. So really take the courage of just raising your hand and asking for help. Number two, if you're seeing a pattern of you like I was, jail, 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 that's kind of a sign you have a problem. I also say this from the podium, Caitlin. If you have ever been to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous or currently sitting in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, you're an alcoholic. No one goes to an alcoholics meeting by their choice, unless they're doing a dissertation for their PhD, some sort of thing like that. But if you're in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, it means you probably have a problem. And then last but not least, I would say this. It would say, you know, is that there's a great TED talk about the opposite of addiction is connection.
Yes. Gabor Mate.
And it's Johann, whatever his name is, the British guy. And
Uh-huh.
he talks about how the rats in the rat cage, when
Yes.
there's no other rats, it's just plain, and they have the choice between water and cocaine water, and they choose cocaine water. But when you take that same rat and you go put it in Rat Park with other rats and toys to play with and this, all of a sudden you have community. And so all of a sudden when you have connection, human connection, okay, that's your pipeline. That's the thing you put in your vein and go, okay, I'm on my way. The scary thing about today's world, Caitlin, I know most of our talk today is about step zero, alcohol, drugs, but really what a lot of young people are doing, they're using escapism, porn,
Yes.
gambling, video games, right? They're just a tech.
Social media.
Social, and also AI, right? And
Yeah.
also we're just going backwards with connection.
I know people are trusting AI to talk to them, and it's like AI tells you what you want to hear. It's not your inner tuition and guidance guiding you. It's not a trusted fellow who's also listening to their own intuition and guidance. It literally learns you and gives you back and spits back the answers that they think you want to hear. I couldn't agree more. I'm very worried about this coming generation with all
Yeah.
of these tools to numb. Yeah. Ah, oh, I'm so grateful for your time today. I end with rapid fire questions.
Okay, go for it.
So I've got just a couple. What was your hardest season of sobriety? Not when you were still drinking and using. What was your hardest season of sobriety?
I lived in Chicago in wintertime, and that was a dark, dark time.
How many years sober?
I was 7 years sober,
Mm,
and it was a
yeah.
7-year itch. And
We talked about that on the phone. So I'm either going to go to ayahuasca in the jungle or I need to like dive further into my recovery and helping others.
yeah, that's yeah, that's kinda where I was at. The seasonal, the Chicago, not my own environment. I wasn't drinking or using, but boy, did I eat a lot of food, and I was not a handsome devil back then. I was, I looked like an accountant for IBM.
And how did you come out of that?
I threw myself back into work. I took a job back in Los Angeles, got back in the sunshine, felt like I was back in my environment, and really a mentor of mine threw me a lifeline, and I said yes. And so I'm a big believer that we manifest things, and and I manifested my way back into recovery.
And I love that you didn't drink. You just said, okay, I'm not going to drink or use no matter what, exactly what your first sponsor said. And then what did I do? And that's at 7 years of sobriety. For my
Yep.
listener who's listening, who might feel like I have a few years of sobriety, I'm feeling this lack or this, another rock bottom. You can always choose a different path. Okay. What is your most surprising gift of sobriety?
Most surprising gift in sobriety is the vibration of hope.
Beautiful.
I vibrate hope.
I love that.
And I don't say that braggingly, I just do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing. I think we emit this light that we can only emit because we're not numbed by drugs and alcohol. And
Yep.
so there's no ego there. It's like you literally are emitting joy and light and hope.
Amen, Caitlin, amen.
All right, what's one myth about recovery that you would like to debunk?
One myth about recovery I would like to debunk is that some of these new nuances are quick fixes. They just remind me of shortcuts, and there is no shortcut. And I wish people would stop trying to sell these shortcuts, because what I've learned about my sobriety is the word slowbriety.
And it's a daily practice. Like we
Amen.
talked about that seed being planted earlier, you don't plant a seed and get the plant the next day. This
Yep,
takes a long time.
yep,
And it's more like a tree where there's seasons. Once it is grown, you lose your leaves sometimes. You look very bare. And
yep.
then you get into spring and then summer and you get your leaves back. And it's like this cycle of life is a cycle of sobriety. So love that. All right. Last one is there was a trend on social media. It's called If I Could Have Coffee with My Younger Self. So if you could have coffee with your younger self, what is just one thing you would tell him?
If I could have coffee with my younger self, I would tell him that, stop worrying what people think about you. Stop worrying about what people think about you.
Love it. Mic drop. It's so true. Okay. Where can listeners connect with you, with Startup Recovery, and tell us about the sweatshirt you're wearing today?
Woo! Okay, I'll start off with a sweatshirt. So it says Palisades matching calamity with serenity. So one of the things, Caitlin, we didn't talk about was I was wiped out in the Palisades fire. I lost my
Mm.
house. Startup Recovery lost their houses, and my kids lost their schools, and it was a very obviously unbelievable stress. And so what I ended up doing was coming up with a sweatshirt that then talked about the Palisades matching calamity with serenity. And I created a website called Palisades Tribe, And really, it's a place where we go because guess what? My tribe of 12 steppers is here in the Palisades. And so you can go and get hats and hoodies and t-shirts there. In terms of finding me, I'm easy to find. I'm Gregg Champion on any social, but Gregg with two G's on the end. Startup Recovery is also out there. Startup Wellness, the Recovery Playbook, all on social, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Please hit me up with DMs. And if you are struggling and you want a different way of a solution, whether it's a different AA meeting, a certain type of therapist, or maybe a solution that Startup Recovery has, just reach out to me. I always answer calls. My actual email's on our website. If you go down the first page of our website, here's our website, and then right here it says to contact, it's my email because I
Awesome.
want that connection.
Yeah.
I want them to talk to me, have me answer the questions, and we go from there. So what else can I tell you? Yeah, I'm just grateful, Caitlin, that we had this connection. I'm grateful that Lauren connected us. I have a saying, it will be on a t-shirt soon. Good people know good people. So
That's so true.
of course we know John Paul. Of course we know Mike Burba. Of course we know Lauren Kingsman, right? Right? We
Yeah.
can just keep going because guess what? Good people know good people.
It's so true. And when you keep your vibe hopeful and high, that's who you attract is other people with that same energy. And I say that to clients all the time, and especially the kids, my own kids. I'm
Yeah,
like, you need to realize your energy and your frequency attracts what you have in your life, the people you have, most importantly.
yeah.
So, yeah.
1,000%. 1,000%. You certainly have a great vibe. And
Thanks.
I'm sure you're an amazing mother, an amazing friend, and having that word sober in front of all those things, it just makes it all well worth it.
Yeah, you should go see my most recent social post on my daughter. She wrote a report on my laptop in the car, just like for fun, wrote an email. And I didn't know what she was writing. And then she read it out loud to me. And I have my reaction recorded. It
Yeah.
said all things about Step Zero, the podcast, talking about soberness, giving people hope that might not even have a drinking problem. This little girl is 8 years old. She's also the lead in her musical. Like, she's phenomenal, and
Yeah.
it's not just because
Caitlin,
I'm sober, but it
Caitlin,
kind of is.
Caitlin, Caitlin, it is absolutely because you're sober.
Yeah.
Your daughter has not experienced trauma, drama, pain, or shame, okay?
Yeah.
Right? You've given her the gift of these 7 years of sobriety that when she goes over to her friends' houses and the mom's drinking the wine or doing the pills or they're fighting, that's chaos. And of course, she's elevated and she's vibrating because you are that example. Not by telling her, by showing her.
Oh, 100%. The ripple effect is real, and it sounds like you have it with your family
Oh,
too, so
I'm a big believer of the ripple effect. What you put out in the world is what you get back.
totally.
1,000%.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I could talk to you all day. I'm going to put all your links in the show notes so everyone else can go find Greg. Watch out. He does have a personal email out there. And
Yep.
then I just like to end by saying to my listener, if you're wondering whether you've gone too far to start over, Greg and I believe it's never too late to recover. It's
Yep.
not the end of your story, it's actually like this launch point. So, Greg, thank you for being here today. I'm so grateful for the work you're doing in the world and the time you took to talk to us.
Awesome, Caitlin. Great podcast. I wish you the best, and we should collaborate in other ways for sure. I definitely think we should examine that. And again, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to just spend time with you. Thank you.
Same here. Thanks for being here.